Hello, I'm Alice Hutchinson, the owner of Birds Books, an independent bookstore in Bethel, Connecticut, and I'm honored to be the host of Write America. The aim of this series is to help set the country back on a correct, productive course of freedom, justice, equality, and plain human kindness. Write America is a literary series created by author Roger Rosenblatt, featuring award-winning, nationally renowned authors and new and emerging writers in readings and conversations each week about how books and art might bridge the deep divisions in our nation. Write America celebrates the quiet power of art in our lives, the unifying power of the highest uses of language. In novels, stories, essays, and poems, we recognize one another as parts of the human family, one family. Roger Rosenblatt, the creator of Write America, puts it this way: writing makes justice desirable, evil intelligible, grief endurable, and love possible. So with that, I welcome you. And please join us every Monday evening at this time as many of the most beloved and distinguished writers in the country read from their works and talk to each other and with you in an effort to bring us together. If you missed last week's episode with Nicole Hebden and Dan Barry, you can go to Birds Books' Write America page and link to the episode easily. Tonight's episode is also being recorded, so if you missed something, you can go back and rewatch. We will be switching Write America permanently over to Zoom right after the Labor Day weekend. So this is the last episode on Crowdcast, but this and all other previous episodes of Write America are still on Birds Books Crowdcast channel and our website, so you can watch the recordings at any time. Tonight, Birds Books hosts readings by and conversation with Gregory Pardlo and Nick Flynn. I will return at the end, after the readings and discussion, to bring your questions and comments to the authors. For those of you unfamiliar with Crowdcast, many of you have discovered the chat to the right of your screen. Please feel free to comment throughout the evening. The questions, however, I go to the bottom of the screen and look for the Ask a Question tab, and that's where you put your questions that I would retrieve. At the bottom of the screen is also a green link to the Write America page on Birds Books' website, where you can link to all of our episodes, past and future. Our first speaker is Gregory Pardlo. Gregory Pardlo was born in Philadelphia and grew up in Willingboro, New Jersey. He is the author of Totem, winner of the APR Hockenman First Book Prize and Digest, 2014 winner of the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry. In 2017, Pardlo was awarded a Guggenheim Fellowship. He is also the author of Air Traffic, a memoir of ambition and manhood in America, the book which weaves together Pardlo's family history, including his father's role in the 1981 air traffic controller strike, with a larger exploration of Blackness and masculinity in American culture, was named to numerous top 10 lists, including the BBC, Vogue, New Jersey Monthly, and the New York Times. We can look forward to a new book, Spectral Evidence, coming out in 2023. Pardlo is poetry editor for the Virginia Quarterly Review and is the visiting associate professor of practice in literature and creative writing for NYU Abu Dhabi, which is where he's calling from now. Please welcome to the screen, Gregory Pardlo. Let me find you here, Greg.
Hey, Alice. Thanks so much for the introduction. Yes, I am dialing in, as we say, from Abu Dhabi, where it is 3 o'clock in the morning, and I may or may not be in my PJs. I'm awake. I feel somewhat sharp, so we'll see. Hopefully that'll hold up. I'm going to read a few poems from the forthcoming collection. As Alice mentioned, the title is Spectral Evidence. I don't know it's still new, so I'm not sure what to preface or gloss, but I'll just jump in. I'm going to read a few sections from the opening series, which is called An Essay on Faith. Exordium. While sound and seaworthy, I confess a life of false confessions, false hearts, ample contempt for bench warrants charging me with failures to appear. Let what interest death's elbow grease won't erase compound, judgments sealed in my ova, my oeuvre, my juvie, and on Q-tips scribbled like rice grains with the star shine of my stem cells. Yard cell, my cracked hourglass, my salt-crusted astrolabe, my maps of the lunar seas. Collect my student IDs, my employee discounts, my almost winning scratch-off. Take my voicemails from the clouds. Dismantle my altar to Walter Mercado, phrenologist of the stars, but stay memory, time's plagiarist. Stay poem, spare tire for memory. Stay reader, beloved, prosthesis for the soul. Let's see. Confutation. We say black bodies when referring to the iconography of racism. No one would body slam a child, but stand your ground against a black body and the courtroom says amen. Affirmation active in the witness's fuzzy memory. The black body is no person per se. It is the American dream, the via negativa that makes freedom ring. It is the evidence of things not seen. Digression. Like the ancient Scythians, I believe to see is to send spittle-like rays that grapple an object's cosmic elements and resemble them in the sweatshop of the eye, a process not unlike tasting with the nose the hollandaise that surfs a heavy sigh, a measure of telepathy, a distance relation that buckets up from the soul a spitting image. The spirit in the queen's magic mirror was enslaved there, Siri tells me. According to Jesus, adultery with the eyes is adultery. Men see, says John Berger. As if I need only observe an English muffin to find its fore texture printed on my tongue to prove the tactility of the eye, that lemony emulsion amusing your bouche too, sudden jets of saliva at mention of the lemon butter's pinch. Don't think of French kisses. According to 17th century slave codes, imagining your enslaver's death was a crime punishable by death. I stopped looking for progress and misplaced my glasses at the hint of truths I don't want to see and pat the bench around me, my chest, my hips, as if I might vanish. Ancient Scythians, blinded prisoners of war to mark them as slaves. A visible distinction. The eyes, the tongue, mon semblable. Watch me unlock my phone with my face. I'm gonna skip to so I guess the book is made up of a bunch of series of poems. I'm working in projects, I guess, in this book. And so I'm just gonna read one from a series called Nunsploitation, which it has at its center Bernini's sculpture of Saint Teresa, Ecstasy, the Ecstasy of Saint Teresa. Nunsploitation. But for that iron's point, blushing, O Lord, like a cautery tool for the wounded soul. The marble and bronze opera idols, an engine of reverence and tourism Bernini distills as ecstasy. This concupiscence, this tantric sneeze. Could Bernini have rendered a pleasure, Lord, not got at the end of a spear? The highest angel haunted Teresa Avila like a Motown hook and prodded her body quiverish with love's heartburn, a rapture fantasy fathomed by her innermost yoga. Her spirit burst forth, good Lord, like a jelly jar of lightning bugs clumsied from a fence post. Beneath the hoodie, her head lolls sweetly with the funk of that agony glorioso which, if you don't know, now you know, because Bernini lifted Teresa's story, Lord, like a shipwreck from its ecclesiastical groove and mimicked her signature miracle, levitation, which she murmured into her sackcloth and wimple. He left Teresa's left foot exposed, as if to bait a bedside tidbit. The devil, for whom she had no fear, for he appeared to her toy-sized and black, and dropped by to make her pound air with laughter, all weightless, all risen by pinch and tickle until she wet him with holy water. Tell me it's kosher, O Lord, that empathy, like art, is useless and necessary, that Bernini's ecstasy is more than secondhand smoke. Whatever he names it, Lord, this bone-still cinema, this gambler's high, I know Bernini's gifts are divvied up between her demons and his own. So I'm going to share a couple of sections of another long series of poems called Theater Selfie. There's a backstory here which is in the poem, so I don't need to gloss, but I will be happy to chat more about it because it still gets me thinking very deeply about sort of social mechanics and nuances. Theater Selfie. 1. At Richard Rogers Theater, I shrank my face to the box office window and confessed to the Lucite's voice vent that I'd told my wife a lie. I had hidden no Christmas gifts in the basement, nor yet acquired the tickets to Hamilton for my youngest, as I boasted I would. The ticket guy pshawed and, like a chilly neighbor, acknowledged me enough to punctuate his snub. But the seat map online, I begged, showed several vacant dots in March. No seats, he snapped. And we went on like this until I looked it up on my phone. Those? He startled. You can't. His pause, its meaning irretrievable now, was heavy with the ghosts of all of Broadway's sins, as if a voice off stage was force-feeding him the line, you can't afford those. His cheeks ripened to prove he'd heard it just as I'd heard it, but that for once perhaps he'd heard it in the way that I'd heard it, and his eyes went spotlight as if to turn my gaze back in on itself, but instead making me suddenly reel, the veil fallen between us, and we two standing outside that magic. I knew I did not have to clothe his fear with familiar stereotypes like a homeboy scarecrow, but as one trained in this hackneyed improv, I could choose to save him. The option was mine. I'd need to draw him out of his head. I spoke first. Do you have kids? He blinked twice and nodded, but I needed a vocal response for this to work. The things we do, right? And he mirrored me on cue, speaking the things we do. We shared a smile until a horn blast from the avenue returned us to society. He asked if I could bring my kid next Tuesday. I conceded a bit of the homeboy, a gift of humor and reassurance. Hells yeah, I said, rolling my shoulders to prove my fluency. He bent to root beneath his desk. Then the Lucite spit 2 unclaimed miracles he must have set aside for someone else. The selfie we took that day tells a partial story. You see us, all teeth and safe as bros. You see me, holding the tickets like a peace sign. But you could never tell, you could never guess the price we paid to get them. 2. Every seat from heaven to the mezzanine envied ours. 7th row orchestra, leash limit of the real, hashtag blessed, hashtag living the dream. Smug polite, we shouldered down the aisles, choked with tourists, busy puppy sneezing their cell phones with their cell phone cameras, mostly at themselves. Because our tickets were a Christmas solid copped for $80 a piece, I hope to dodge the goddess who taketh away from those who make parade floats of their fortunes, and kept my selfie game turned low, just a shot of thumbs, mine dingy nailed and elephant skinned, the kids kid-sized and glossy as the ticket stubs and playbill we held like proof of life against the backdrop of the stage. Meanwhile, a voice, perhaps that goddess from the machine, declared all photos were forbidden, which made me think of footage smuggled from the tender age cages of McAllen, Texas, and made me fear our souvenir selfie would be frisked from my phone by intermission's helpers, and the photo's faceless anonymity fail to protect us in any lineup, including the selfies with background bodies cropped headless as saints, or this phone shields the face like a misplaced fig leaf. Those tattoo selfies with their cellophane frames of skin pigmented like storefront church windows that doubly beg for breaking on the wheel, or whatever punishment suits the sin of branding oneself to make oneself a brand. Those unbidden photos of man junk don't fascinate, not in the way the phallic amulet Romans called Ficinus might, worn to ward off invidia, aka the evil eye, but they do invite the curse that wipes the member from the body politic. Shoe selfies shot on the cliffs of Moher are proving fatal. Because there is no hiding from the closed circuit karma obscura, I decided instead I would unburden myself of all things hidden, to make our lives transparent as a middle schooler's backpack. I like to think I gave my kids, even as their profiles etch in clouds and data pollen green and fossiled onto motherboards, even as the future makes the past impossible to escape, blank slates on which they could imagine selves the world has never seen. But the values we christen them with, like tribal markings, are subliminal trackers meant to keep them homing to their first fold and assuage the fears their mom and I hold of that proverbial white van, dope-dealing ice cream man, the predatorial piper whose domestic terrors are fought with thoughts and prayers. How can I teach them to live with joy, their hearts unshuttered and vulnerable, when, as I admired each in turn, their God-kissed newness cupped like chicks in the car carriers home from hospital, I considered spitting in their faces, as one neighbor insisted in her native brogue a parent must do with a child that is too beautiful, early humiliation preempting future envy, for her own good. Is it possible a neighbor could love my kids as if they were hers, while I disguise my fear as care and hope my silence inoculates them against the acts of jealous gods? Hope my absence from the selfie will exempt them from the crappy roles I've had to play in this American cast. That fear of masking a more primal one, that I really can't afford these tickets and I am not worthy of their love. For what could I but fear when I know life's theater is full of ghosts and mirrors and baleful peacock feathers? Maybe it comes down to this alone, that only by loving every child of this earth could I be worthy of loving those I call my own. Whew, I'm still getting used to that poem. All right, so I'm going to read just a couple more short ones just to wrap up. From the closing series, which is called Giornata. Giornata is the work of days, the work of a day, I guess. 2. Bathing in the milk light of the boob tube in a house that moved like a shipwreck with curtains that sieved wind through midnight portals, I wormed my finger down the back of my jammies to see what the fuss was about. For once, my dad's asthma had not announced him like Darth Vader emerging from the corridor's murk. His scalpel eyes flayed me clean as an X-ray, a cartoon cat struck by lightning. In that moment, gravity wanted nothing to do with me, which let me suspect myself an angel. Holy, holy, as I considered the tenders of my dust to dust until disgust sandbagged my thought balloon and I tissed that boy on the floor watching TV with his finger in his ass. My macho cowardice would not let me recognize that boy as me and said, no man for health or pleasure, twin measures of the body's weakness, should plunder the pervious mercy of his dark side. I wore that prohibition like a cone collar. The other day, from an anesthetized twilight on a gurney, I once again lay on my side, weightless, with eyes glued to a TV screen, and let a greased lens gerbil its way through my colon, and thought of you, dear Lord Vader. Family history, my doctor fears. As I introspect with borrowed vision now, I weep for you, and pray for you and for me, and for boys like us, taught to be disinterested to the spirit within. And the last one, let's see, another father one. My father Bacchus wanted a daughter instead of me. He felt the threat a son implies, and took you, my infant virility, scarf skin like a halo, angel of my innocence forefledged. Before the ritual, there was guilt. You were vestigial as the divot beneath my nose where the angel pinched my lips in binding silence. Would I see myself in style or fit if I encountered you, my soul, draped like a lost mitten on a fence post? Tattered as a moth-eaten turtleneck, hood like the hood of a headsman. If you were reappended, would you lisp like chiffon or crunch like corduroy? You are the macho my father's dream foretold, he who in the end was like a son to me, whose own member circumscribed a foreshortened life story mine was intended to resemble. My forebear, the brutal gardener, he who conjured the corona must have foreseen his own eclipse and standing on ceremony, found at hand a means to get my sex to bleed. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Our next speaker is Nick Flynn. Nick Flynn is the author of This is the Night Our House Will Catch Fire, and 3 previous memoirs, including the Penn/Joyce Osterwheel award-winning Another Bullshit Night in Suck City, and 4 volumes of poetry. A professor on the creative writing faculty at the University of Houston, he lives in Brooklyn, New York. Please welcome to the screen, Nick Flynn. Let me find you here, Nick. There you go.
Hi, everybody.
You there?
Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm here.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, everybody. Greg, thanks so much. That was really great. Greg is, as you know, Greg, you're my dear friend. Our lives have been crossing for many years now. I hope my internet is okay. For all of you, thanks everybody for being here. Also, that was such a great reading, Greg. I really look forward to the book. I've read all your work up till now. So I'm going to read a few pieces from a new book of mine that's going to come out next year. The book is titled Low, L-O-W. And I'll start with this piece here, which is on my computer. I'll start with this first. It's called Television. And I did a thing. I'm going to do this one because there's a couple of pieces now based on the just inspired by images by Gregory Crutzen, the photographer, sort of cinematic photographer Gregory Crutzen, who probably a lot of you know his work. But if you don't, you can look him up. It's called Television. A father, a daughter. We know the TV is on by the light on their faces. We know the light on their faces is made by the TV. The TV is full of faces, each face made of light. Their faces are made of the light in the TV. Their faces look in the same direction, at the TV. We know it is night by the light in the windows. We know it is summer by the blanket on the floor. We know this is America by the walls made of plastic. We know it is the father inside of his chair. We know it is the daughter. We've seen her before. She can rise up at any time. The TV is on. It spills light onto the carpet. The TV is filling them with another family. The family on TV sits on a couch watching TV. The family on TV is bathed in blue light. This light pours from their eyes into the eyes of the father and daughter. This light pours from each word into the ears of the father and daughter. Inside the TV is a lamp. The father inside the TV pulls a chain to kill it. Good night, honey. Good night, Dad. The walls are the same color as the couch. The couch is the same color as the lampshade. The lampshade is the same color as the father. The daughter's face is so white, it seems to glow. Her legs glow. A strip of her belly glows. Good night, light. Good night, TV. Good night, nobody. Good night, mush. So that's a new poem that may or may not end up in the manuscript. I also want to thank Alice and Roger for pulling us together. Thank you, Roger. I'm not going to read a slightly long piece. The book is it's sort of a hybrid-y book. There's some poems that maybe look like essays. They're sort of longer. So this is one of those. And they all have these titles which have notes in them. It's called Notes on a Photograph by Gregory Pardlo. It's a different photograph. It's also subtitled Want. Want. A car left at a stoplight in the middle of a street in a small town. The headlights still on. The driver's door open. The passenger still in her seat. The passenger is lit up by the interior light. There's a Hindu saying, you can get what you want, but what do you want? She could lean over and pull the driver's door shut and the light would go out. She could lean over and turn the knob and the headlights would go out. Is that what she wants or what I want? Where's the driver? The car is oversized, American. You had a car like that when we met. You'd bought it off your uncle or your grandfather. You'd drive it down to the city to find me. Everything was moving so fast then. At least that's how it seemed. We needed to be somewhere. It might as well have been in that car. As a kid, I learned or dreamed or heard about something called astral projection. You could lay down, close your eyes, and your astral body would rise up away from the cage of your physical body. The astral body could travel anywhere through space and time. It was a way out, but of what? My room? Where would I go? What did I want? To want, the emotion involved with lack, the way deprivation is manifest, a hole that cannot be filled. From the Old English, 1498, wan, lacking in blood or energy. Before I die, this is what I want to hear. A woman left in a car at a stoplight in the middle of a street in a small town. Fog is coming up behind her, or maybe she is already in the middle of it. Fog is something else you can't see when you're in the middle of it. It creates a bubble of light around you as everything beyond it falls slowly away. One morning, a woman, young, beautiful, approached me in the East Village. Are you looking too? She asked. I knew what she was saying. I could have said yes, and we would have gone off together in search of her want. But at that moment, it wasn't my want. A couple of years earlier, it would have been, and I would have gladly gone with her in search of it. Your oversized American car, you lent it to a friend, and he totaled it. You let him use it, and it never came back. The next time it was my turn, I had to find a car, so I took my girlfriend's mother's car. Her mother was in the hospital. My girlfriend was at her bedside. The streetlight turns from yellow to red to green and back, over and over, like a song on repeat. I drove it straight to you. The verb to want came into use around 1200. Wanton, be lacking, be without, borrowed from Old Norse vanta, to want, see, wane. The original notion of lack was extended to need, and from this developed in 1706 the sense desire. What happened in 1706 to transform need into desire? Her mother's in the hospital. I know. What did you tell her? I needed something in the city. Did you say what you needed? She didn't ask. She was with her mom. In the hospital. I know. The astral and physical body are connected by means of a cord, along which vital currents flow. It is a perfect replica of the physical body in which it is housed. It is made of lighter stuff, luminous, translucent. The idea that there could be two of me made sense. The promise that I could come back, that I could travel space and time, and in the morning my mother would find me in my bed just where she left me. In the movies, the woman waves out the back of the car window as it pulls away, and the way she gets smaller and smaller is a slow motion vanishing, smaller and smaller until she is gone. We know it is a trick, an illusion. We know that all along it was me who had found a way to vanish in plain sight, to stand before you, a perfect replica, and let your hands pass right through me. It is dawn. No one in town is yet awake except her. She could turn the dial on the radio until something came back to her, something she remembered. Is this the bad thing she was warned about? Back then, there was something lacking in nearly everything I touched. With you, it transformed into desire. It met yours. Whenever we put ourselves in the same city, it was like the wind, how it shapes itself into whatever it encounters. Just by moving toward it, it becomes. The astral and physical body are connected by means of a cord. Before the silver cord snaps and the golden fountain is shattered and the pitcher breaks at the fountain and the wheel falls shattered into the pit and the dust returns to the earth as it was and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Ecclesiastes. The silver cord is what connects us to ourselves. A woman waits in a car at a stoplight in the middle of a street at dawn. Maybe it's not so bad. Maybe he or she will come back, bring her something sweet from the gas station, gummy worms or vinegar and salt chips. Maybe a jug of red gasoline, if that's the problem. Maybe there is no problem. The sun is just coming up. The street is empty. All the stores are closed. To speak your name is to build a city of fog. You could have taken the train. I need to be back tonight. Tonight. The train stopped running. I didn't know you were going back tonight. I don't know if she's going to make it, the mother. Yeah. It's a hard time to end things. I can imagine. It's a tricky operation. You can live with one kidney. So she tells me. Unless it fails, then you need to find another one. I'd set up my life as a series of rooms that had too many doors. Some I forgot I'd even entered. If you entered one of these rooms, what would you find? I'd sometimes be there, but more often I was in my car where I felt safe, though I couldn't tell you the danger. Danger can sometimes live so close it feels like breath or a shadow. The fog is coming closer now, rolling in, as they say. Maybe it's coming from a machine. Maybe this is a movie set, a movie about a small town, a main street, a lunch place, a dollar store, a place you can still go to buy a padlock, a hammer. It is dawn. She is waiting. Did someone tell her to wait? Did he say he'd be right back? Did he know that she would just sit there until he came back? Are you looking too? White lines painted on black tar. They tell you where to stop, where to park, where not to be. The streetlight turns from green to yellow to red. The green is sudden, unlike the fog, which is slow in coming. It makes the world outside appear as outlines, but soon even these dissolve. Is this what I wanted, to be inside it? I didn't want to see what blurred beyond. I'd smudge it with my eyes. Your house can be made of fog. Your childhood is mostly fog. Your mother held you with hands of fog. The car seat makes a sticky noise when she moves her thigh. A fly becomes a sound in her head. Outside, the smell of rain. My brother called it ozone. The smell of rain on tar. It is dawn. The birds are waking. The sidewalk trees come alive with them. Like a switch being flipped, unseen. In an alley, a dog has found a bone, but to us, it's only the sound of it, slowly wearing away beneath his teeth. The fog is seeping into everything now. You know, I have a daughter now. She is building a world in her computer. She leads me into it to show me her storehouse of weapons, the garden that needs no sun, a box of chickens, a shield that can kill. Each day we get a few minutes together. Mostly it's the two of us staring into the fridge, wondering if there's anything we could possibly eat. I have a cellar full of carrots, she tells me. Everything is made of what it is not, even dirt. Dirt wants seed, seed wants water. Take any piece of it away and it becomes a ghost who wants. I was a ghost all those years, the space left in the driver's seat, the door left open. Or you were my ghost, the interior light falling on you, giving you shape. If I closed the door, would you disappear? A car left at a stoplight, the door open, the wind carving you out of nothing. The car could sit here for another hour. No one will notice because no one is yet awake. The interior light is still on, which makes the car feel like a snow globe. The town is still dark, but there you are, as the light turns from lack to need to desire, as the wind takes the shape of you. This is what I didn't tell you, not to keep anything from you, but because I didn't know it myself. My wants. In a dream, I saw them in a field, and I went to them with a net. The net caught them all, and I carried them down to the pond. I planned to drown them, but they gnawed their way out. Now, whenever I swim, they will be swimming beside me. I simply wanted them to stay outside of me, but there they were again. Again, I was driving at night. I left a message. I'd be there in an hour. In an hour, you'd open the door. Maybe you'd leave it open. I'd go in, find you in bed. Your room looked a lot like my room. It had many doors. Most of them I never opened. I'm sorry for that. When we die, some of us will get our own planets, and some of us will end up back with everyone we ever loved. Those who get their own planets, they will order furniture from a catalog to fill it. Or they will just think it, chair, and it will appear just as they imagined. Milton, after he went blind, desperate to finish Paradise Lost, his amanuensis would come by each morning to take his dictation. The book was inside him, and she was the only way he could get it out. The day she was late, he'd wander room to room, muttering, "I need to be milked," staggering through his paradise, his robe open, unashamed of his nakedness. I need to be milked. That's what I want. There's still time. The fog has not yet reached us. I'm going to read one more short piece if I have time. I'm going to see how my time is. I'm going to read one more short piece to end it. Thanks for being here, everyone. This is called The Past. If you saw a horse, it was strange, as if the past was riding up to meet you, as if the past could ride a horse, as if the past was a horse wandering riderless along a dusty road, as if the horse had never been ridden. They say a horse is broken when the rider can stay on. They say the past is broken when you can let go of it. I have broken with the past, she says. I've erased her from my phone. I have blinded my eyes from her eyes. I didn't know the past was made of horses, so many horses carried across the Atlantic, as if a ship could change the shape of the ocean, as if a horse could become the ocean. It was strange, that horse, rising up to meet me. I didn't even call it a horse until now. I didn't even call it strange until I looked back on it. The past was a ship full of horses crossing the Atlantic. The past was a horse crossing a desert a body draped over it, legs tied to arms below the belly of the horse. This is how we get the beloved home. Strange now to never hear a horse upon waking or when out in the field. Sometimes one gallops past, but no one else ever sees it. I didn't know the past would come for me. I didn't even call it the past until now. Thank you.
Wow.
Hey, Greg.
Hey, Nick.
Hey.
Oh man, that's heavy. That is fantastic. Wow. So you're working on these longer kind of cinematic. What came to mind was like Chris Marker and his essay films.
Yeah.
I don't know the artist, the photographer you mentioned. So what's
Gregory
tell me about him?
Gregory,
yeah,
he does like he sets up these very cinematic scenes, and often they all have a very limited range of objects. There's usually a car. There's often a car in them, like an old car. They're often in broken down towns. He lives, I think, in Western Mass. They're sort of like broken down towns with like someone like a light pole, like shining light on someone. Yeah, and you've seen his work. I know you've seen his work.
okay.
Yeah, you
Wow.
would recognize him. He's very sort of distinctive. Yeah. And you got a whole book. You got a whole book. When is your book coming out, Greg?
We don't have a date yet, but it's targeting spring, summer of 23.
Okay.
So hopefully more like summer.
Maybe we'll get you back then to do some readings, huh? Will you come back to America? Yeah. Did everyone catch that?
Yeah.
Remember that Greg is zooming in or from Abu Dhabi, which I'm embarrassed to say I had to ask him like if that was a country or if it was a city, like when we checked in.
You're not the first to ask.
Yeah, I was like, I know where that is, sort of. It's like, yeah. So you'll probably come back for some of that, and these poems.
I will.
These poems are very different too. These, I mean, they're not different, but they're like sort of like more. Your first book, was much more like sort of like brainy and sort of theoretical and like sort of like really sort of the and all that stuff is still there, but there's also like this breadth in these ones now where we can sort of, at least for us to land in them and to sort of hold on to the work, like it's really fascinating to see how your work's progressing, it really is.
Yeah. I had that Coleman Fellowship a couple of years ago, and a lot of the work, it comes out of research, which I heard in your poems as well.
Mm-hmm.
Are you doing a lot of research? Sounds like you're doing a lot of research, or how is that?
Am I doing a lot of research? Well, not. Let me think. Probably some. There's always some amount of research going on. Yeah, I mean, but some of it's like, not like your.
It's just stuff you had in your head.
Well, a lot of these poems, not really. Yeah, not even the ones I really read from, but a lot of them come from the collages that I do. I have a collage practice.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I even gave you one. I might have given you one at some point. I'm not sure. It's so good to see you, Greg. It's sort of amazing, like from across the world. And also both of us are so sort of spacey that we both didn't quite clock that we were doing this together until like 2 days ago. We're like, I get to do it with Greg.
Some guy named Nick. I don't know.
What's that? Yeah.
I saw the email. Some guy named Nick. It just hadn't made the connection.
Yeah. I hadn't looked at the emails close enough. So, but I'm in a house, the house upstate where you've been to. You and your family are beautiful. Yeah. Have been here, and I love how your family sort of weaves in and out into work too. And the father, it's interesting. Like the father.
Oh man.
It's sort of been in it's probably been in every one of your books. I think he's probably appeared in every one of your books, right? Like.
Yeah.
He made an appearance or been the center of some of your books too. Yeah. It's interesting how over life of writing these,
I've tried to not tried, but I thought for this book I had worked him out of my system, right, with the memoir, and I could move on. No such luck. No.
Yeah.
So as much as whenever I'm turning toward other subjects, what I think are other subjects, the father still is pushing, making his presence known.
Well, that's the thing though. When we get to be like the age our parents were, at least for me, like I think it's true for everyone. You get to see the world suddenly through their eyes. Like you sort of see like, oh, this is what it's like to be like, 50 and have like, a kid or two kids, and to like, look and say like, oh, like I didn't imagine that, that they could feel that way. And I think we do probably feel their, some of their same feelings too at that moment. We sort of get that.
Yeah.
We're sort of channeling them into it. It sort of makes sense that they keep appearing. I think. I don't know. I've given up on trying to keep, my mom and dad out of my work. Although they didn't.
Yeah.
I guess they weren't anything I read tonight though. But I'm sure they're weaving through the whole book though.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not necessarily. I guess I was. There are some poems where I tried to avoid my father, but I think that the pressure of trying to avoid actually gave an interesting edge to the poems, because obviously I can't avoid, but
yeah, that creates a tension. Yeah, trying to avoid something. It's like trying to sort of tamp down the subconscious that's rising up. It can create a nice tension. Like you sort of want to let the pull the subconscious in as much as you can, but even trying to resist it will do something too. So yeah.
Hey, you mentioned. I wanted to ask you. You mentioned astral projection.
Yeah,
that was a theme going through one of the poems, and the title of my book is Spectral Evidence, and spectral evidence is the lack of evidence. So the idea with this book is, I was thinking about the extrajudicial killing of Black people, right, and how the rationalization for that is simply fear. Well, look at him. He's obviously very scary. I had to shoot him. I feared for my life. And then, we say, yes, okay, that makes complete sense. During the witch hunts, it was a part of the legal structure that someone could say, oh, she visited me last night in the form of a bird and landed and crapped on my windowsill, and I got sick from that, and therefore, so spectral evidence is the evidence you give when someone was not present. Yeah. That she was actually on the other side of town, and but she visited me in this form. So this whole idea of our fears manifesting and being responsible for someone else's crime, or being a location for projecting feelings that we are ultimately responsible for. So I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about the out of body experiences and these kinds of projections.
That's wild. That's wild that there's an actual legal. That's a legal term. That's wild, because I thought spectral evidence would be something more in the paranormal realm. Right.
Yeah, something more metaphysical and
like the astral.
I guess it is.
Yeah, like the astral projection is more like, worse as a metaphor for me. It's like sort of a feeling. It is the same thing, but it is a feeling. It's a feeling state. Feeling like not completely one place or another. It sort of makes sense to me. It always made sense to me as a kid when I read about it, and then I sort of re-encountered it, which is maybe part of the research, if you can call it that, but just re-encountering that image and sort of like it's finding a way into the work. Well, you have that in the Black Bodies poems. You have that, evidence of things not seen.
Evidence of things not seen. Yeah, and in the colonoscopy poem. So he feels himself rising above himself, but that shame that is causing that disembodied feeling, and he's looking down at his self.
That it comes back. Like during like a drug-induced medical procedure. Like what appears. It's interesting what appears. I mean, it is like it's an intense moment. I've had I've had one of those myself, and it's an intense moment, you know, a very intense moment. Yeah. Yeah. Then you had yeah, all of it, like the language is so beautiful in the work. Like it really felt like there's so much, there's so many like language play, which you've always done, and sort of these sort of like little hidden rhymes, like the language is just sort of bouncing off each other, like really in a very satisfying way.
Thanks.
And also the like the past. I mean, I know, like I've seen from your Instagram photographs, you've been traveling like the ancient world with your family, like and seeing all these ancient things. And yet in the poems, there's that up against like, you know, hashtags and selfies and you know, the phone, turning on your phone with your face, using your face to turn on your phone, and having this like moment, like what it's like right in this moment to do that, you know, to bring that in. Yeah. What has it been like to be like, you know, being like in a whole nother world? Like you're I mean, it's not a place, I don't think it's a place you've been to before. You've been to Abu Dhabi before this, or?
No, I came out in 2018 to give a reading here, and met folks, and the students are fantastic. The students are literally from all over the world. The Emiratis make up 13% of the population. And so the vast majority of the population here are expats and guest workers. So it's an incredibly, you know, we only give lip service to diversity in the U.S. And here is like the whole world is literally here.
Yeah.
So it's a really exciting environment, and an exciting intellectual environment to be in. But yeah, so no, the point is that every day is a learning experience. There's always something, and the language differences of, you know, I just feel like my mind is alive here in a way. And of course, there's, you know, the whole kind of racial expat element, right? I feel present to myself. I feel access to myself in a way that I don't always when I'm at home, right? Yeah. There's a kind of self-consciousness that I'm often managing at the same time as I'm going through my daily life. Just a lightness that I have here.
Wow.
So,
what a gift for your kids, you know, to be there.
Oh man.
To get them
totally.
to experience this other reality, you know, like.
Yeah.
You know, I know it's complicated in Abu Dhabi, like you said, with the, you know, the guest workers. You know, it's a complicated situation there. That's like it must be interesting to navigate just around that. You know, like, yeah.
Questions of class are so. I mean, it's always, we can always find the troubling elements. But it's also fascinating the way we participate in the behaviors of class, the way we're complicit, you know, it's just sort of unthinkingly. And so my kids go to, like many expats, would go to schools where the populations, the student populations are from very extremely wealthy families, right? They're professors' kids, and so they're not very wealthy, but I see them sort of, you know, imbibing, I guess, or just breathing in the air of privilege, and it's I don't know, it's fascinating. Put it that way. Yeah.
Well, I guess you must have done a good job when you went in 2018 for them to bring you back, you know, for.
I like the folks here. I like the folks here a lot.
That's great.
Yeah, we got along really well. Yeah.
Looks like Alice is coming back now. Maybe that's.
Yay.
Yeah, I just have a couple questions from the audience I thought I'd pass on.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
One of the questions is to Greg, I believe, is thank you for your beautiful and powerful poetry and your presence tonight. One of the things she asked about was your father. In the tenser the situation, the more unflappable air traffic controllers seem to be. In real life, did this carry over with your father? Do controllers have this bearing when off duty or just on the job?
Yeah, so that was part of the, I guess, exploration of the memoir was me thinking through where my father was in the performance of himself. You know, he made himself a character for the job, but absolutely brings that character home. And then when he lost the job, you know, what does he do with that character, and who is he to himself? And absolutely, the people who were attracted to air traffic control were people with very large egos, and people who were sort of interested in the high pressure situation, and you know, that's just a personality type. So Nick, we're talking about being at that age as your parents, you know, and I'm sympathetic on the one hand, but then I also remember being my father's son, you know, and the tension of being subject to my father's whims and you know, mercurial nature.
Mm-hmm.
Air Traffic is such a fascinating book too, just because it also is like such of that moment, and of a moment of like, it really does go back to that, like the class, you know, union busting, the whole class thing is like, it's really got it's a beautiful, like, you know, beautiful and, you know, disturbing meditation on when the country sort of went off the rails, you know. It's like, it does feel like the moment, it's capturing the moment the country went off the rails in some way, way. It seems like, that's my read of it, you know. So
yeah, no, I think that's right.
Yeah.
There's another question. Would you both say more about how visual art inspires your writing?
Do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, I could say something like, I sort of, one thing I mentioned in the reading that this book sort of began with, I've had a collage practice for many years, since in my 20s, maybe in my teens, and just during COVID, I decided to write a poem for, like, you know, for many of them. I did sort of 2-month-long, you know, daily writings of I'd get a poem, I'd meditate, a collage, I'd meditate on it. The collages which I'd already made, I'd meditate on it briefly, and then write a poem, or write a rough draft of a poem. And I did that every day for like a month, and then I came out of that and then revised the poems over the next few years. And in the poems, in the collages, there's a lot of art, like various like little moments of art in it. Like a lot of things I found were other people's, you know, representations of art. And so, but I didn't want to make it like, or not that I didn't want to, but they're not like ekphrastic, because it's sort of like making the collage out of them. I already sort of broke it up and made it sort of a strange conversation between like different times of art. It's almost like with Greg's, you know, having the hashtag and St. Teresa ecstasy, you know, like having these things together, like sort of like having things sort of overlap each other. And so it's making something new and then writing something new from that. Was sort of more the impulse. But then the stuff I read tonight, like the Gregory Pardlo stuff, I just sort of like, I'd known that work for years. I just sort of, a student brought an image of a Pardlo image to one of my workshops, and I just sort of like, saw it, and I was just really fascinated. I put it on my wall for like a year, and I just kept looking at it every day for a year, and it just really, you know, that piece came out of it eventually, like, which took a long time for it to come out of it. But,
yeah, I'm often interested in the kind of art that becomes or serves as a kind of cornerstone of Western culture, right? And the things that we use to say that we are civilized, and then that we are advanced in this narrative of progress. So I'm just fascinated with the way art is interpreted and assigned power, and then, you know, used to signal all these various kinds of advances and genius, I guess, is something that I'm really interested in. So yeah, it's also more personally, my mother is a visual artist, and I've and I've been sort of jealous of her craft, and often as a way of just sort of getting closer to the artistic practice that I felt great affection for as a kid. You know, I'm attracted to visual art for that reason.
Well, as we wind up the hour, gentlemen, I have two questions for you. The first is, what emerging author do you think we might have missed that you want to share with us?
Hey, Nick, do you know, I was thinking about this earlier, Stephanie Dickinson?
No.
This poet, I mean,
Oh, yeah, I do know this book, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know that book.
You know, I'm often afraid to say, I have no idea how I got this book. It came in the mail or somebody gave it to me, but it's a fairly recent book, and I picked it up off of my shelf over the summer. I've just been blown away by it. I'm really into these poems about George Trackle. So yeah, that's what I've been reading.
Awesome. Nick?
For emerging authors, well, I just know two people whose work I've read, and I'm sort of, they're not published though. They're sort of, so I hope that's okay.
Oh yeah. We want to be able to keep them on our radar, so that's why you're.
One of my grad students in Houston she's been working on something for like years, and it just has sort of come together. I'm very excited about it. Rihanna Brandt, 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 Rihanna Brandt. I just thought her latest draft of this piece is just really, really gorgeous. What she's been working on for many years, like, you know, we were back in like 2015 or something. She graduated, and then we've kept in touch. And there's another younger writer, Tate Sherman, who's also just finished the novel that I just read, just a draft of it. He's sort of sending it out now to get. So those two, Rihanna Brandt and Tate Sherman. And then what I'm reading now, I might as well jump into that, right?
Okay, that's the next question. You bet.
I'm reading one of my favorite writers, also, you know, besides Greg, of course, is Kelly Groom. Do you know Kelly Groom?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, she has a great memoir that came out a few years ago called "I Wore the Ocean in the Shape of a Girl," and now she has a new book that's going to come out, a collection of essays called "How to Live," and I'm reading that right now. So, yeah, and that again, that book
I've heard of that one,
but that'll be out soon, though. "How to Live" will be out soon. I'm reading it in Galley. So,
yeah, I'm reading. I use my classes to shape my reading list, and so I'm reading Diane Seuss's the Frank sonnets.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to Roger Reeves' Best Barbarian, and Customs. It's a poet who did Look.
Yeah, Solmaz.
Solmaz Sharif. That's it. That's it. Yeah.
Good. Those are good choices. Yeah, all good.
Mm-hmm.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure, and I want to thank Greg again for getting up in the middle of the night to add in. I just really am so impressed. I'm really moved by your work. So thank you so much, and I'm going to have to sign off for the night.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
I would like to thank Greg and Nick for participating in Write America this evening, and to everyone who tuned in tonight. And thank you, Roger Rosenblatt, for creating this original and important series to look forward to each Monday evening. Tonight's episode is the perfect example of the purpose and mission of Write America. After taking a break next Monday in observance of Labor Day, we hope you will join us Monday, September 12th, as we host Fred Newman and Tony Early. The episode information and the Zoom link can be found on our website, and you have that on the green button at the bottom of your screen. Please remember to check out Bird's Book's Write America page, where you can find out information about our upcoming episodes and maybe purchase a book or two. Thank you, and enjoy your evening.